Today we're diving deep into a fascinating stack of material, all centered around Alice Miller's groundbreaking work, The Drama of the Gifted Child. It's an incredibly powerful exploration of how our earliest childhood experiences, even those that seem perfectly normal, or even ideal, can profoundly shape our entire emotional landscape. What a journey this is going to be.
It absolutely is. And this deep dive, I think, aims to illuminate a really powerful paradox. How individuals often praised for their talents, their achievements, can actually harbor deep-seated suffering just beneath the surface.
Right.
We'll explore the often hidden roots of what Miller identifies as narcissistic disturbances, the, unsettling concept of the false self, and ultimately how a genuine emotional understanding of our childhood can lead to profound liberation.
Liberation, okay.
Yeah. It's a journey that challenges many common assumptions we hold about what truly makes for a happy or, successful childhood.
Yeah. So, the core of Miller's work, it isn't really about children who experienced obvious neglect, is it?
No, not primarily.
Instead, she zeroes in on individuals, often described as gifted, sensitive, or highly capable, who truly believe they had happy, protected childhoods.
Right. On the surface, everything looked fine.
Exactly. Yet, as adults, they find themselves grappling with severe depression, emptiness, and a profound sense of self-alienation. They were admired, praised, often from a very young age, took on significant responsibilities, like being toilet trained by one or capably looking after younger siblings by, say, 18 months or 2 years old. It's quite the contrast.
It really is. And this immediately raises a big question for us. Why? Why would such seemingly well-adjusted, even highly successful people experience such deep internal distress?
Yeah.
Miller's core argument is that these children developed she calls it an amazing ability to unconsciously perceive and respond to their parents' unmet needs. They essentially took on a specific role, performing for their parents to secure what felt like love.
Okay. Felt like love, but maybe wasn't quite.
Precisely. In reality, Miller argues this was their parents' narcissistic cathexis. That's a bit clinical, but it means the parents' emotional investment in the child for their own needs, not for the child's true independent self.
Got it.
The parents, often having been narcissistically deprived themselves in their own childhoods, sought from their child what their own parents couldn't provide. A mirror, an echo, someone to admire and follow.
So if the child's whole existence becomes so wrapped up in fulfilling parental needs, almost like becoming a self-object for the parent, what does that do to the child's inner development? What are the immediate consequences?
Well, that's an excellent way to put it, and it's this fundamental distortion that really plants the seeds of their future struggles. This constant attunement creates what Miller calls a differentiated sensorium for others' unconscious signals, basically, an almost uncanny emotional radar.
Like they're hyper-aware of others' feelings.
Exactly. And here's the critical insight. While this looks like a strength, and it even leads many into helping professions,
Sure, yeah. It actually becomes the very root of their narcissistic disturbance. It fundamentally prevents them from ever truly connecting with their own inner world. They've been shaped to reflect their parents' emotional issues, remaining, as the psychoanalyst Winnicott suggested, without a true mirror for themselves.
Okay, so if a child is constantly focused on reflecting the parent, reading the room, basically, what happens to their own inner world, their own authentic feelings? Those are so vital for a healthy sense of self, right?
Absolutely vital. And a critical and frankly, heartbreaking consequence, according to Miller, is the repression of these authentic emotions.
Repression.
Yeah. Feelings like jealousy, envy, anger, loneliness, impotence, or anxiety, even basic joy and desire, they become impossible to consciously experience. The child learns, as Miller puts it, the art of not experiencing feelings.
Wow, the art of not feeling.
Because expressing them would risk losing parental love. And for a child, that feels like object loss and death, a complete psychological annihilation, a threat to their very survival.
So it's a survival mechanism. It's a profound, unconscious survival mechanism. This isn't about the parents being intentionally bad or the child being rebellious. It's just the child's authentic distress simply didn't reach the parent, not necessarily out of malice, but because the parent themselves was often narcissistically deprived and depended on a specific echo from the child.
You share some incredibly poignant examples in the sources, especially the dreams patients talk about. They really give us a stark sometimes chilling glimpse into this hidden reality.
Yes, these dreams are so powerful because they bypass our conscious defenses.
Mm-hmm.
One patient dreamed of being in a box, thrown into a river dead, yet hearing her heart beat a visceral image of a vital self being buried alive.
God, that's intense.
It is. Another saw himself in a white coffin and felt relieved it wasn't his mother, but him, signifying the killing off of his own anger to preserve that parental bond.
So sacrificing himself.
In a way, yes. And a young girl dreamed of lying dead in her bed while her parents talked over her, completely unaware.
Invisible.
Completely. These are potent representations of what Miller, drawing on Winnicott, calls the false self, an as-if personality that reveals only what is expected. It's a performance.
A mask.
A mask, exactly. The true self remains in a state of non-communication, hidden, undeveloped. Patients often describe it like being in a glass house where the only way to hide something is to bury it so deep you can't even see it yourself.
Which leads to that emptiness you mentioned.
A profound sense of emptiness, futility, or homelessness because a vital part of them was cut off and partially killed, as Miller puts it.
This sounds like an incredibly painful journey, like being locked in an inner prison, cut off from your own core. How do people even start to find their way back from such a deeply ingrained as-if existence?
It truly is painful. The process of psychoanalysis, as Miller describes it, aims for the emotional discovery and emotional acceptance of the truth.
Emotional acceptance, okay.
Yes, in the individual and unique history of our childhood. It's not just intellectual understanding. It has to be deeply felt. It marks a turning point when a patient realizes that all the love and admiration they earned with so much effort and self-denial was not meant for him as he really was.
That must be devastating to realize.
It is. They confront the agonizing, unspoken question that really shaped their childhood. What would have happened if I had appeared before you? Bad, ugly, angry, jealous, lazy, dirty, smelly? Where would your love have been then?
Wow.
This question, even if it wasn't thought consciously back then, represents the profound core of their suffering.
So for the healing process, it's not just about knowing this intellectually, is it? What does it mean in terms of actually becoming whole again?
It's far more profound than just knowing. It involves a long, often painful process of mourning. Mourning for the childhood that was never truly lived. Mourning for the genuine, spontaneous self that was sacrificed.
Mourning what never was.
Exactly. The grandiosity fantasies, that constant need to excel, to be the best, that once served as a defense, can then be understood as alienated forms of legitimate needs. Needs for attention, respect, mirroring, that were never met authentically.
Ah, so the grandiosity wasn't just ego, it was a distorted need.
Precisely. The patient gradually, through therapy, starts to experience their repressed, archaic feelings, the anger, the demands, the avarice, and integrates these previously split-off parts. It's a discovery of home, Miller says, not a homecoming, because this authentic self never truly existed out in the open before. It's about developing a new emmets for oneself, for one's own fate, born out of this deep emotional mourning.
Miller paints a very clear picture of what a healthy self-feeling looks like and contrasts it so sharply with this narcissistic disturbance. It really highlights the depth of the problem.
She does. A healthy self-feeling, in her view, is an unquestioned certainty that your feelings and wishes are genuinely yours, like your own heartbeat, she says.
Just part of you.
It's just part of you. This individual has the inner strength to fully experience their emotions, sadness, despair, anger, without fear of upsetting the internalized critical parent figure, the introjected mother, as Miller calls it, who lives within them.
Because their real parents allowed them that space.
Yes. These individuals had parents who were truly independent of them, psychologically. Parents who allowed them to develop their own impulses and identity. They could use their parents as a secure base because their parents weren't dependent on them for validation.
But for those with this narcissistic disturbance, it's a starkly different story. They seem to be constantly walking a tightrope between two extremes.
Absolutely. Miller describes grandiosity and depression as two extreme forms, often reversible, of the same underlying narcissistic disturbance.
Two sides of the same coin?
Exactly. Grandiosity is that constant, insatiable need for external admiration, where you feel you have to excel brilliantly just to maintain your self-esteem. Totally exhausting. And as soon as this external validation fails, or even just dips, a severe depression looms. The Chestnut Lodge study you mentioned actually confirmed this, observing families where children were essentially loved only in proportion to their ability to fulfill the family's ideals for prestige and achievement.
So depression isn't just a separate issue then, it's actually the flip side. The consequence of this desperate drive for external validation when that fragile foundation inevitably cracks.
Precisely. Depression is often described as the tragedy of the loss of the self, or alienation from the self, precisely because it stems from a profound denial of one's own authentic emotional reactions.
Right.
The ancient legend of Narcissus illustrates this beautifully, doesn't it? He falls in love with his beautiful reflection, but denies his back view, for instance, and his shadow. They're cut off.
He only sees the perfect image.
Right. This fixation on the false self leads to a kind of psychological death. Miller offers a really striking example from a reader's letter where a mother admits, thinking about her baby, "I wouldn't have minded if the baby had died."
Oh my goodness.
It sounds horrific, and it is, but Miller interprets it not necessarily as malice, but as revealing this profound emotional disconnection, a denial of her own emotional accessibility, where a child's feelings are, in effect, killed because they can't be received.
Wow. Okay. You introduced this concept of the vicious circle of contempt with such a vivid example, the parents laughing at their small child wanting an ice cream cone. It's hard to unsee that once you hear it because
Yeah.
it feels so, well, common and subtle.
It is common, and that scene, though seemingly ordinary, really highlights a pervasive and often unconscious form of emotional abuse. The parents, perhaps once laughed at for their own fears or desires as children, unconsciously replay this dynamic.
Passing it down.
Unconsciously, yes. They find a temporary sense of strength in the child's helplessness, laughing at his desire to hold the ice cream himself, not just taste it. This contempt for those who are smaller and weaker becomes a defense against their own unacknowledged feelings of helplessness from their past, and the child, without anyone sticking up for them, internalizes this contempt. And this kind of emotional imposition, this contempt, it can show up in other ways too, right? Even more intimate ways, like Miller's discussion of seduction in the sources.
Yes. Miller broadens the concept of seduction beyond just the purely sexual, though that can be part of it. She describes parents who, out of their own loneliness or inhibited desires, make narcissistic use of their children emotionally.
How so?
Well, for example, a father who may be inhibited in his marital sex life might find arousal bathing his small daughter, or a mother who continues massaging her son's penis to treat his phimosis, supposedly, well into puberty.
Right, blurring boundaries.
Exactly. These aren't necessarily malicious acts in the parent's mind, perhaps, but they are instances where the parent's own unfulfilled needs subtly and tragically impose on the child's developing boundaries. It creates profound insecurity. The child who is just seeking loving contact feels insecure when desires are aroused prematurely, or when their natural exploration, like autoerotic activity, is met with parental scorn or prohibition.
It sounds like the child just soaks up this contempt. They interject it or internalize it, even if parents' actions weren't intentionally trying to hurt them. What's the lasting impact of swallowing all that?
Precisely. The child internalizes these parental, scornful reactions to their natural impulses, whether it's autoerotic behavior or wanting more food or showing anger. This interjected contempt then perpetuates torment later in life.
How did that show up?
Often it manifests as complex psychological issues like obsessions or perversions, as Miller discusses them, or other deeply ingrained self-defeating patterns. The true self struggles to survive under the same conditions it experienced with the, say, disgusted mother figure internalized inside them. The example of Hermann Hesse is incredibly telling. His parents tried to break his defiant behavior at age 4. He was even sent to an institution at 15 to put an end to his defiance once and for all.
Wow, for defiance.
Yeah. This shows how even what looks like love and care and pride in a gifted child can actually destroy that child's truest self if it doesn't align with parental expectations. It left Hess with this oppressive feeling of guilt for not meeting those expectations. He later wrote extensively about the constant dread and uncertainty of his childhood.
So, given how deep this runs, how do we break free? How do we escape this powerful, deeply ingrained cycle of interjected contempt and the false self? It sounds like a monumental, almost overwhelming task.
It is a profound task. It requires an emotional working through of one's childhood history, not just remembering, but feeling it through.
Feeling it.
Yes. This involves accepting the irreversible past. You can't change what happened, and truly mourning the loss of that illusion of the happy childhood. The goal isn't just intellectual insight, though that's part of it. The real goal is a regained sense of being alive.
Being alive.
And the freedom to experience spontaneous feelings. All of them. Even the difficult ones. Envy, rage, disgust, despair. It means allowing the self, the one that was previously in non-communication, to finally grow and articulate its authentic needs and emotions.
And what does this freedom actually look like for someone once they've navigated that often really painful process of self-discovery and mourning?
It's transformative, from what Miller describes. It means no longer being compelled to manipulate others to get needs met indirectly.
Okay.
Recognizing manipulation in others more quickly, being able to join groups without becoming helplessly dependent or losing yourself.
Having healthier boundaries.
Much healthier boundaries. It allows for a more nuanced view of the world, free from the need to constantly idealize people or situations or demonize them. You learn to take your own feelings seriously, whatever their nature, and crucially, you will not help to keep the vicious circle of contempt turning.
Breaking the cycle.
Breaking the cycle. As one patient put it beautifully after a long period of mourning, the world has not changed. Nevertheless, for the first time, I find life really worth living. Perhaps this is because, for the first time, I have the feeling that I am really living my own life. And that is an exciting adventure.
Living your own life. What a truly thought-provoking deep dive into the profound, often hidden impact of our earliest experiences and the silent battles many supposedly gifted children fight. It really underlines how vital it is to connect with our authentic selves.
Indeed. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it leaves us with a pretty important question, I think. In a world still largely blind to the subtle suffering of children, and often idealizing the very parents who unknowingly inflict it, how many of us are unknowingly perpetuating that same vicious circle of contempt, maybe forcing others into our parents' roles, and what vital parts of ourselves and of others around us remain locked away as a result?